I'm Mike Eldred. I am the president, manager, woodshop supplier, everything else at Cabron Guitars. I started building guitars when I was about 17 years old, and it's a weird story. I started working at Charvel, but the way I started working at Charvel is kind of strange. I had a buddy of mine, a guy named Mike Farley, and he called me one day and he goes, "Oh, we got to go see this guitar player." And so we went. He took me up to LA, and we went to Guitars and we saw Van Halen, and that was cool because we'd hang out with Ed and talk about guitars and stuff and what he was playing through and stuff. And obviously he was a really good guitar player. And so anyways, we'd keep going up to Hollywood and we'd follow the band and watch them play and all that stuff and hang out with Ed. And one day he shows up at the Whiskey and he had this black Stratocaster, and it was a 64 Stratocaster, and he totally just ruined it. And then a couple months later, we went back up there, and he had the black and white Strat with the stripes on it and stuff. And so I said, "Where did you get that at?" And he said, "I got it at Charvel's Manufacturing." And so I wanted to get a body and a neck too and build a guitar. And so he gave me the phone number, and I called him up, and they said, "Well, we don't sell bodies and necks anymore. You have to buy a whole guitar." So I drove up there, and I put money down on the guitar, and they were building a guitar for me. And it was just, when I say they, it was just Grover and his wife Joanne. And so the more I went up there, and I would give him like $100 at a time and stuff, and I was like, I really need a daytime job because I was working nights at some store and all that stuff, and I couldn't really rehearse or play in a band. So I asked Grover for you to hire me, and so he hired me, and I started working there in 77 or 78, something like that. I was 17 or 18 years old, and so I worked with Grover. 2 weeks later, I was hanging out with Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top and then Kiss and all these other people. But Ed Van Halen gave me the phone number for Charvel, and that's how I really got my start. Yeah, and then I worked for Grover for many years. We did a lot of stuff with all kinds of artists, Randy Rhoads obviously, but there was like Wasp and all these, Rat, Guns N' Roses before they started out, and just all these bands. It was just constant. People would come down to the shop every day, and it was just like, Alan Holdsworth would rehearse there, and I got to hang out with him and became really good friends with Alan, and so it was just interesting. But after I left Charvel, I went to work at Yamaha, and I worked for Yamaha for about 8 or 9 years. Did a lot of production stuff with them over in Taiwan, setting up factories and things like that, and dealing with artists over there and all that business. And just, yeah, it was a trip working there because it was a different aspect of the business than what I had come from. And then after that, I played in a band with Lee Rocker for I think a whole year straight, just that. I was doing that in between stuff, but for a whole year. And then John Page called me and asked me if I wanted to come work at Fender. And then I went to work at Fender, and I worked for Fender for I think 19 years. Ran the Fender custom shop there, did a bunch of stuff there and all that. Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, John Mayer, Richie Blackmore, Los Lobos, John Patitucci, Nathan East, Bonnie Raitt, Billy Gibbons, Dusty Hill, Carl Perkins, Pete Townsend, Jimmy Vaughn. Did a bunch of stuff with Jimmy for his guitars and for his brother's guitars. Robin Trower, Ike Turner, Mary Kay, David Lindley, Ry Cooder, Dick Dale, Gene Simmons. Who else? Bryan Adams, and did some work with the Hendrix family also. A lot of people. I mean, that's the ones that I can really kind of think of, but a lot of people. I've had a pretty interesting career. Well, El Cabron, the way I came up with El Cabron, I really kind of started dealing with that when I was at Fender, and I did the Cabronita and came up with that. And I wanted something that was a little bit more adventurous or a little bit more intense type of a instrument. You know, it had more aggressive styling to it and wiring and things like that. So I started working on the concept there. And then some of the stuff that I came up with there, it was hard for Fender to get into. So for me, you know, after I've been doing music for a long time in my life and doing all that stuff, I really started wanting to build guitars again. I went to the NAMM show last year, 2024, and I met some people there, and it was just like, you know, you should be building guitars, you should do this. And so it was really kind of flattering, and it was interesting to talk to some of those people. So, and then some of my artist friends have asked if I would do some stuff, and so then I just kind of developed this whole concept of combining a platform of a guitar, but then also doing unique art on each one. So each one's kind of a collectible guitar. Well, the way the concept is, I really didn't want to get into make a guitar company where it's like, okay, I'm going to build 30 red guitars this week and 40 black ones this next week or anything like that. I really wanted to do it more conceptually and more artistic, so that it's limited and special for the guy who buys it, or girl, whoever buys it, and sits there and says, oh, it's a unique piece of art and it's collectible. So that's really kind of where I'm approaching it from. So the concept is that I'm only doing 5 at a time, and each one's unique. I'm taking a specific platform. Like the first platform is Esquires, and because I really like Esquires and all that stuff. But I have a kind of unique wiring. There's an Eldred Esquire mod that people have put on their guitars for Esquires that I came up with a long time ago, and the grease bucket tone circuit. And I thought, wow, I'll put those kind of in the guitar at the same time. So I kind of did that with this one. And so the grease bucket's in there, the Eldred Esquire cap that I used is in there. And, you know, so I'm only doing 5 of those. I'm only doing 5. They're all 5 Esquires. The neck shape is kind of cool because when I worked at Charvel, I would shape a lot of necks for people. And David Gilmour wanted to get a guitar made when they started doing the Wall concerts. And so they brought in a 1955 Esquire that had a great neck shape. So I shaped I shaped a bunch of necks for him for that, but I kept one for my own guitar because it felt so good. And so that's what this neck shape is based on for the Cabron Guitars. And I'll use that throughout all the models. But like the basic thing is this Esquire is the first one. 5 guitars only, making all unique art on them. And then you know, the cool wiring and all that stuff. And then after those are sold, then I'm going to do 5 more guitars, and I don't know what they're going to be yet. I kind of have ideas of what I'm going to do, but that's kind of what that's what the plum thing is. And so I'm going to do 5 guitars. I'm going to announce a day when they drop on our website, and first come, first serve. As soon as, like, they go on sale, I think September 1st is the first time we're going to do it, like at 9 o'clock, you know, Central Time, and then, you know, first come, first serve. First, as soon as they are sold, they're sold. And then those 5 are gone, and then we'll do another 5 different ones and all that stuff, which I still got to figure out, but yeah. The most, probably one of the one that stands out the most for me, the most unique experience for me was working with John Mayer on his black guitar. Because what John is a real interesting guy, and so he had contacted me, and he said, I want to come up to the Fender Custom Shop for a couple of days and just see how you build guitars. He was interested in that. And I said, okay, cool, you know. So he came up, and I took him out into the wood shop, and I handed him a block of wood, and I said, okay. And he goes, what? I go, you're going to build a guitar. And so I had him build a guitar from scratch, and, you know, run all the machinery, you know, drill all the stuff, route the edges on it and stuff. He actually painted that guitar. And yeah, we had a great time for 2 days up there. And John got to really see what it was like, because people don't really get to see, you know, behind the scenes and all that stuff. So it was really kind of neat for John. And I think that guitar probably was really special to him because of that. But that was probably the most unique thing and rewarding thing for me. I really enjoyed showing somebody how to do that.